Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Masha Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. In today's episode, Michelle and I are speaking with Yelena Liman about product growth and 3 pivotal growth metrics. I have to say it like that, also known as pirate metrics, RICE and HEART. Yelena is the founder and CEO of Empower Consulting. So let's dive in. How are you, Yelena?
I'm happy to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Hello, Michelle.
Hey, good morning, Matt, and good morning, Yelena. Well, I don't know if I should say good morning because people might listen to this in the evenings, but that's okay.
It's good for us.
Yeah,
Hello?
good any time of the day for anyone that is listening to us.
That's right. I say good day sometimes.
As long as you are greeting them, that's good.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, and I don't know why, but Matt and we have this unspoken competition about where the guests are from, and recently
Toronto's crushing Atlanta,
Toronto
Georgia.
is crushing it. Yes,
I gotta step up the even the U.S. game. I gotta step up the game down here. So
well, it's only because I'm going to a lot of live events recently,
right,
and I'm meeting a lot of very interested people over there. So I met Yelena in one of those events.
That's exciting. There seems to be a lot happening in Toronto, so we've had a lot of great guests on. So it's a pleasure having you, Yelena.
Yeah,
Toronto is awesome.
COVID, so everybody are getting outside and meeting people, so it's very nice. And yay, Toronto.
Yes.
With the North, as we like to say here. So, hi, Yelena. Let's start with just telling us about yourself. How did you get into product management? That's always an interesting path to learn.
Okay, well, I started as a software engineer, and I started because my parents drove me to their direction and told me this is the good direction for you because it brings you money. But after I've been about 4 years in being a software engineer, I didn't really like that because I was sitting next to my computer. I had this team leader who was very micromanagement, and it was very hard for me not to get all the system around me because I'm a person who's looking in a system perspective and then I'm diving deep down. And there was one person in our company. I was working back then in a small company of 100 people. And this person who was the product leader of the whole organization. And for me, he was so inspiring because he was working with everybody. He was working with customers and with partners and with all the teams and with the QA and with the hardware and with the software, with everybody. And I looked at him and I thought, that's what I like to be when I grow up. Because he had this system understanding and he saw the whole picture and he had those different puzzles that he had to combine into one whole picture. And that's exactly how I saw myself and what I wanted to do. So from there, I decided, how do I go further? Because as a software engineer, you usually go to become a team manager and then a team of a team manager and so on. So I decided to do my MBA degree with entrepreneurial direction. So I did this degree. And while I was doing this degree, I moved to work at Intel as a project analyst position, which was much closer to the product manager, because actually it was like my next step after being project analyst for a while was to become a product manager. And from there, I began working as a product manager in different sub-organizations within Intel, so such as Thunderbolt, for example, people who are familiar with the Thunderbolt connector, those of you who are using iPhones. So I was product within this specific product. I was the product leader of the software team. And later on, I moved to additional sub-organizations within Intel. After that, I moved to Amazon. I've been handling there as a senior product manager and within the advertising industry. So I've been handling with a lot of dynamic issues, specifically around regulations and how do we overcome all those struggling that we have. So being in those senior positions, I found myself enjoying very much of building strategy and creating this product-led growth. And after a while, I decided if I enjoy that so much, why not doing it on my own and helping smaller companies to reach to those scales and to reach to this growth by themselves. So that's why I opened my own consultancy. And in my consultancy, I'm helping companies to select, to develop, and to execute products, specifically software companies. So I'm helping them to create this product-led growth within their company in order to raise their revenue, in order to grow their company to a higher perspective.
Right, right. That's very cool. I liked how you mentioned the word puzzle over there because it's like we're building puzzles in product, and
Very
that's
much.
yeah. That's a great analogy I never thought about before. So I love that. And very impressive background. So thank you for sharing that with us. So when we're talking about product growth, your soft spot with organizations is that they already have some product market fit, and then you help them with the growth, or even before.
Well, it can be before, it can be in different stages. So it can be directly from the beginning, because being a product-led growth, it's a whole mindset of how do you develop your product. So you can start as a startup, as an entrepreneur who is looking to create a product. And if you're creating your product from a product-led growth mindset directly at the beginning, you're moving in a totally different pace. You're scaling your product much faster, and you're finding your users and your customers much faster than if you are driven from sales or for project or for marketing. And if you are already a company who has established market fit, so there is also a place for product-led growth, because in that way you are approaching to your customers in a better way, and you're giving your product to do all the heavy lifting for your company instead of wasting money on plastering the market with advertising or investing more into sales. I'm not saying that those two are not important; they are very important. But you want your product to be the one that resonates with your customers, that one that attracts your customers to use it and make them come back to use it even more.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Every time that I'm thinking about, there is a title even in the industry, a growth product manager. And when I'm thinking about that, I'm always thinking that they do it after it's already, there is some product market fit, and they're responsible for how do we grow it, how do we extend it through the product, still through the product. But what you're saying makes a lot of sense, that if we don't start with a mindset up front or in the beginning stages of the product, it will be much harder for us to do it later on, or we might waste a lot of cycles.
That's true. But I think that for small companies, it's probably expensive to have a person that is thinking about growth. So it's good to have a CEO who is coached with this product-led growth mindset. It's good if somebody can coach him, but if not, probably it's going to be more expensive for them to have this type of mindset.
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's probably why you see a lot of startups have software engineers or product managers as founders and CEOs, because they probably have that mindset when they start the business. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, I'm finding a lot of entrepreneurs who are starting to do that they think that they have this type of mindset, but actually it's not there. So when you think that you have this type of mindset, you think that you are working from your product up, from your product to customers. But it's not only that. It's also the fact that you need to understand your goals and where are you going exactly. It's basically like in life, same as in business, that you need to know where you're going in order to be there. And you need to understand what are you looking to win and in which arena you're looking to win. So you need to build your strategy. And a lot of times when I'm working with entrepreneurs that are building their own startup, they have this idea in mind of what their product should look like. And the vision, it can be there or cannot be there, but it's not always like parallel. They're not always speaking the same language. So they can have a vision of something, but the product that they're building is addressing something else. And they think that they are product-led growth, but actually they are led growth of the idea that they have about the product and not about the goal and the customer and the vision and about the inspiration that we need to bring to the market.
Right, right. Okay, no, that's really interesting. I mean, this world these days is very complex. So I can see how that happened to someone that started a company, or in the initial stages of the company. There is so many complexities to go through. So how do you approach it? How do you start, approaching it with people in this situation to help them, navigate these complexities?
Well, the market is very dynamic, that's for sure. And it's going to be much more dynamic with every year that we are passing by. And I think that we should start from first, you have a kind of idea, but then you need to validate that this idea is legit, and legit from the perspective that customers will be willing to pay for that. So having an awesome product, it doesn't mean that this is the product that you need to build. You need to have an awesome product that customers will be willing to pay. And you can understand that only after talking with customers, after talking with them and after brainstorming with them and explaining to them your idea and understanding whether this idea is relevant or not, whether this idea really resolves their pain point and really addresses something that they need. And maybe this is something that they don't need because there are a lot of products that are entering to the market that users didn't know that they need that, right? Same as iPhone or same as those watches wearable that we have. But somebody read between the lines and somebody saw that there is a need for something without the customers knowing about it. So when you're talking to your customers, you need to read between the lines and understand why do they have those pain points and what those pain points are saying without saying. Once you know that, you need to define the market, you need to define the customers, you need to define the goals. And when you're working on your MVP, because usually this is the first thing that you're doing, you need to understand whether this MVP addresses the goals and addresses the vision that you're having for your customers for this specific project. And if it did not address, meaning that it shouldn't be the MVP, or maybe the goal should be different. So it's very much an iteration between the engagement of the users, talking with the users, understanding your idea, understanding the goals of your product, and working on something that is that can really address those goals. So it should be very, very agile because you have to address those dynamics within the movement of the product.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, validation is one of those things we always really keen on, to make sure. In places like, I've read a lot, about Amazon, but I don't know much about Intel. So that's really curious for me to hear maybe from someone that was there internally and done it over there. How do you do validation in products that Intel are creating? That's a really interesting, or maybe over there it's more about we need a faster chip, so we're going to get a faster chip.
So the validation, when you're asking about validation, you're asking about customer validation?
Yeah, that what we're going to build is actually going to be used and there is going to be market for it.
So in Intel, there is this type of service that is called strategy planning. So the strategical planning are working very close with the market customers. So they're not working with the customers as you and I, but they are working with those companies who are selling those chips. So whether it's Dell or HP or anybody else, but at the same time, they're looking on the trends that are currently running. So for example, if they are seeing that there is a big AI trend, so they are looking how they can make their performance much better, how they can make their timing much better. But at the same time, for example, Intel, there was a part that they missed the trend where a lot of companies that are developing chip design, have developed those chips for smartphones. And they missed this trend and they didn't enter to this market at the right time. So they missed a big segment of the market because they didn't do that. So it meaning that you always have to be alert, even if you think that you are on top of the trend, and even if you think that you are speaking with the right customers, you need to make sure that you need to understand whether you can broaden the customer segment that you're talking with in order to see that you are addressing each and every segment within the market that you need to address with your product.
Yeah, as you brought up Intel and as you were speaking earlier, I was thinking about like the new Apple Vision Pro. And, by no means is Apple a startup, but the Vision Pro is an MVP. It has a battery that's disconnected. You have to put it in your pocket. People like the comfortability of it. And so far the reviews are great, but at a $4,000 price point, penetration into certain markets is hard. So I was just thinking about like as a product manager inside that, there's a hardware software components and just trying to think about how you might go about validating that experience, the screens and pulling stuff up differently. So that was kind of going in that direction when you were talking. So
It's very hard to validate hardware, and that's
Yeah.
why you do have some type of validation because you are doing some smaller designs of the chip design itself, and also you have a lot of tools that doing simulation for the design itself in order to make sure that it addresses the needed items. And for sure, software industry is much faster and much more agile in that direction. But I do believe that the hardware industry have a lot to learn from the software industry on how to adapt better agility and how to adapt better adaptability and customer perspective into their products.
It's really interesting because one point that you raise over there, which is much easier for companies like Intel or like Apple, is that research into the industry and what's available, where the industry is going, and understanding not just your immediate competition, but what might your competition going to be in the future is so important for them. And they have the resources. They should have the resources to do it. While startups and small companies, it's much harder for them to do. So they have to niche down to a very specific niche. And only when they are in a growth stage, they could actually afford maybe planning to. But if they have the mindset up front, then they could do that.
That's true. But at the same time, who can really predict the trend? Who can really predict the future? Nobody. I can tell you that in the future, we are going to have a lot of machine learning and AI because everybody is saying so. And we're going to have a lot of rappers around that. And we may be going to have like crypto is coming back, or maybe it's not. But in a year or two from now, you will tell me, hey, Yelena was right about it. But I maybe was right in 80% of our update, or maybe about 20, but something will resonate. So it's very hard to predict the future. But you also need to be very attainable to that, to make sure that you are not staying behind, to make sure that you are adapting what's already there. For example, for a long time, the word AI was very disturbing to me because if you're not saying the word AI in every second sentence, it's like you're not there. And as more as I'm using those ChatGPT wrappers and all those tools that provide me accelerators for my business, my own business, I understand that it's not only having the capability of doing machine learning, it may be only using this ChatGPT wrapper, but it's also accelerating your capabilities. It's making you more effective. So even if you don't want to use it, you have to use it because you have to be on trend. You have to make things faster. You have to be dynamic as the market. So you can say that I'm not using AI, but at the same time, you have to do that just to be more efficient.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. It's very hard to predict the future, and it's all about bets. So it's bets and risks. And we see Apple are quite successful in this, but they also have flops in the past. They have products that didn't really work, they were too early, or I used many years ago in my first position as a software developer in the Army. I used Newton, an Apple Newton. Probably most of everyone never heard about this. What is the Newton? But it was really the first handheld device without keyboard, just with the stylus. Even before Palm Pilot made it very
acceptable.
Acceptable, and people knew what it was. But Newton was before that, and they only made it for a couple of years, and then they dropped it. So they knew the future, but sometimes you have to make bets that don't always work.
On that matter, I think that the difference between bigger companies and smaller is that the bigger companies have a budget to try and experiment and kill the product later on, while smaller doesn't have this capability. Like they don't have this, this privilege to do that.
Exactly.
Like Google is one of the companies that killed probably
Google,
so many products.
That's what I'm saying. Google Glasses. So like you can learn from the past as well. So like Apple probably learned from Google Glasses. They were a flop, but I think that they were headwear that was trying to do something similar to what Vision Pro is doing. They just learned from that, and then they took some of what Meta has with their VR headwear. And so they learn from competition, they learn from failures of other companies, and then they say, "Oh, we're going to do it better."
And the technology develops since. Chip shrunk in size and grew in capabilities and power and stuff like that. So there's always more technology that enable things these days, and the same will be in the future. So that's a trend, probably will always be there.
trying to predict a trend. Recently, I saw some shark episode when entrepreneurs are coming to sharks as investors.
Yeah.
And there was some guy who was suggesting to implant some kind of a chip within our ear, within our brain, in order to do some kind of activities. I don't remember what. And then they asked him, and how do you charge this chip in case it needs to charge batteries? So he told it that we would need to sleep next to the outlet and input it through our ear. And they looked at him. Either the person is crazy, either he's predicting a great trend way ahead of us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me wonder what Neuralink with Elon Musk, how's he charging his?
That's how innovation happens with some crazy people.
Yeah. And maybe some people can be ahead of the curve. So like with a startup might have a great idea, and there's probably a bunch of startups in some, that are in some universe of like we were too early. They had great ideas too early. The technology wasn't there, the product market fit wasn't there, the metrics weren't there that were driving them forward. And 10 years later, it's like, oh, I thought of that 10 years ago, and now here it is. So
now building on our Canadian/American co-hosting over here. In America, it's called Shark Tank, and here in Canada, it's called Dragon Den. So that's
there we go. Yep. Shark Tank. I was going though. I knew where we were. So yeah, Shark Tank. Yep.
So you have sharks, we have dragons. We have dragons. Okay, awesome. So let's now dive into those growth matrices that Matt mentioned in the beginning, in the introduction, because that's one of the things that you're using as tools, and we want to be very actionable for people. And I'm sure that most everyone that is listening to this have heard about at least one of them, if not all of them. So we're talking about the R, or the pirate matrix, which is spelled AARRR. That's why.
Yeah, you got to say it. R.
Yes,
you got to be a pirate.
Oh, you have to be a good pirate. Yes. Well, we should have brought our eye patches and hook.
Right. Yep.
And we talked about rice, and rice, I'm usually using it more as a prioritization metric, but we can talk about why it can be considered a growth metric. And then heart. So let's dive very quickly into each one of those, and then where would you use each one of them? What's the right case to use them?
Okay, so all the three of them are growth metrics because they help us to determine different measurements on different stages that we are within the company. And by the way, all the three are working well for startups, working well for small companies, and for the huge companies. So the AARRR, the pirate one, is when you're looking to measure the user journey from the awareness up to loyal advocacy. So we will talk later about different the different letters and how do you relate to each letter, what does it mean? But it's actually the user journey from within all its steps. The RISE metrics telling you about prioritization and why is it important for growth, because you need to select wisely your product that you are working on in order to create the growth within your company. Because if you're selecting wrong products, you're not growing in the direction that you're looking to grow. And the third one, the heart, it's actually how do you improve user experience. So you already have a product, you measured how you do the acquisition and so on, you prioritized it and it's in the market. Now you're looking to improve the experience that the user is facing within the product, within mature products. So that's when you're using the third one.
Perfect. So let's maybe dive into what are the A's and the R's in the R. R. I'm not a very good pirate.
You're getting better. Yeah.
Sure. So the first one is the acquisition. The first A is acquisition, because it helps you to measure how does the feature attract new users. So you're looking to put the feature in the market and understand why the users would come because of this feature. Next A is the activation. It evaluates how users how quickly do they adopt to those features, how do they use those features and so on. Next one is retention. Are users who engage with the feature more likely to return to the product, or the feature doesn't change anyway the way that they are using this product? Next R is the revenue. So up until now, we had this acquisition, activation, retention, now revenue. We are assessing the feature impact on your company revenue. Does it encourages upgrades? Does it provide more subscription? Maybe people purchase the whole product more because we have this additional feature. And the last one is referral. We're looking to analyze whether users are more likely to refer different customers to the product because this feature or because this new capability that we have just developed.
So because these are different stages of the buyers and users, it's like a funnel, right?
Yes, it is.
So the different stages that they are engaging with you or with the product, mostly with the product when we're talking about PLG, product-led growth. There are some users that are more in the initial stages, some later in the stages. Sometimes we have maybe a balanced number of people. Sometimes it's very skewed to one way, so we need to put more efforts in one of those, right?
Yeah, we do need to. It's always the question of what are you looking to measure? And in every step of the product, you're looking to measure something else. So the first question that you would need to ask for yourself is, what am I looking to measure in the current state? Maybe I see a lot of customers who are coming to the product, but are they coming just to try it out and they are leaving after 2 days of trial? Or do I see them actually using this product and I can actually trace their behavior and the trends of their usage within the product? So it's always the dependence of what are we measuring. So first, understand what are you looking to measure, and then you can always find a metric that can help you understand, are you in the right space, in the right measurement?
Yeah. So when you consult people to use that metrics or that funnel, this is more from a strategic perspective or also from making it work, like what instrumentation you need to do in the product in order to be able to measure these things? How do you read the data, and what are the insights you get from the data?
Well, this is an instrumental tool that helps you to measure the performance of what you currently developed.
Right.
So we need to understand if the performance is not good enough, we need to understand from where this performance is coming, or maybe the performance is good enough. So we need to understand what is the behavior and the pattern of the customer of why do they enjoy of using this specific feature? What does it resolve for them? What helps them to arrive to this specific feature? So we are looking on those measurements as to understand the performance better and improve the performance from there. So either we have to analyze what's not working, or we have to analyze what's working and repeat that in our other products.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's move now to RISE. What are the components of RISE, and how do you use it for growth?
Okay, so for RISE, we have, so R is for reach, how many people will be affected from what we're going to develop. I is for impact on the company key objectives. So what is the key impact of the feature itself on the company key objectives? How do it affect our goals? Does it bring us closer to the goals, or does it address our goals at all? The C is what is our confidence that people are going to actually use this feature. And the E is the effort of how much will be required from budget and from tools and from effort from people, resources, how much it will be required to do that. And then you have like a simple option to measure it. So you're multiplying reach by impact, by confidence, and then you're dealing it with the effort, and you have a solid number that sometimes it's not so solid. Sometimes you can give some of your own objectives because you don't really know how it will reach the customers, don't really know what is going to be the impact. So you can imagine or you can play with the numbers, but it actually gives you something very tangible to help you measure and to help you calculate each of those activities in order to select which one to develop next.
Yeah, I've seen it also in the past that it's pretty hard, some of those, to evaluate properly. And there are some biases of people when you do that, if you do it as a group or if you do it individually. And sometimes you have to put like t-shirt sizes for things. How do you deal with things like that?
Well, you always have the benchmark of what was working for you at the beginning before that, or you can give your estimation of how much do you think that this feature will address the needs based on the customer interviews that you're having. So yes, it's always objective, but still it gives you some kind of numeric value in order to measure it more properly, in order to give it something tangible. So it's only like brainstorming with other stakeholders who do have a sense about this information, who do have the background from the market in order to define those items more precisely. And that's the only way.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because also for R and some stages in R, especially in the beginning, with you need to involve stakeholders. It's not just something that we do on our own and we have all the magic in our heads as product managers.
Yeah.
Some of these are a group effort.
Yeah. As product managers, I think that our strength is to find the strength within our people, within our stakeholders, and make sure that everybody are playing a whole symphony all together. So not creating a case where each of us is working on something else, but that we're moving all together as a team. And the product manager is the person who's holding this accountability within the team to make sure that everybody are there and everybody contributing from their experience.
But they don't come out of context. The context that we use those is that we know what the vision for the product is, what's the strategy for the product is, and the company, and then we align this with that. So a lot of that when we think about the impact, for example, if the impact on the vision or strategy is very low, that's what defines the impact there.
Yes, I think that everything that we're measuring should come from our goal. And where are we seeing the company in X years? How are we looking the company to impact on the market, to impact on the competition, to impact on us? So all the impact everything should be driven from there, no matter how do you measure that, because it can be that I have a salesperson within my team, and at the same time I have an engineer, and both of them thinking that the impact is different. But the question is not what is the impact on them, but what is the impact on the company goal and how the company can reach to its market and to its customers.
Right. And goals are not necessarily always to make more money, even though that's at the bottom line of companies. But there are many goals that can be defined. Right?
Yeah, you can have North Star goals, right?
That's true.
Yeah, there could be a lot of many different things. It depends on the stage of what it is, etc. Amazing. And then the last one was HEART. Tell us about HEART.
So HEART, also we have those letters that help us to determine what they're saying. So first H is for happiness. So it measures how the user is satisfied from our product. The E is for engagement, how actively users interact with the product. The A is for adoption, the rate which new users start using our product or the new features. The R is for retention, how many users continue to use the product over time. And the T is for task success, how many error rates do we have, how many task completion rate, what is the task completion rate, and so on. So this gives us a general objective of how the user engagement and how can we improve the user experience within our product.
Hearing these three frameworks, I had a question about, can you use a combination of these three? And if you can, is there a preferred combination that you recommend using?
Well, using a combination of the three is always better. You don't want to put all the eggs in one basket, right? So you want to understand everything around your product. But when you say to use the combination, it's not that now you have a product in the market and you're looking to prioritize what's already there. So you don't need that. But when the product is in the market, you're using the HEART method. But when you're only thinking about the product, then you're using the RICE and the R method all together in order to understand what should be next, what should be the next development within your company. So you are using them together, but actually they are not together. They are coming in stages dependent on what do you need within your company in the current stage.
Yeah,
okay,
so
that's great.
Yeah, so where are those specific points that you would recommend use this versus that?
So for example, let's say that I'm currently thinking about new ideas and I'm doing the ideation phase within my company. So when I'm doing the ideation phase, we have all the stakeholders in one room and we're throwing out ideas and we're thinking about them. So in that case, we would need to have the RICE method, which we are evaluating each of those ideas and putting on them some tangible number to say what is the priority of each idea and how will it impact on the final goal that we're having today. Maybe, by the way, maybe the final goal could be better customer acquisition. This can be a goal as well, not only having more money to the company. So in that case, I would use the RICE. Then using the rights, I define which is going to be the first development. So I'm working with that with my team. I'm doing some MVP. I'm putting it into the market. And then I have those first early adopters that are going to use, or maybe some A/B testing that I'm doing with my product. So then I'm using the first metric, the pirate one, the AARRR. And in that case, I'm looking how users are using this new functionality. How do they start engaging with it? Are they looking to use it more? Does it help them to have a better solution from the whole product? Does it have any difference in what we had before that? And now we see the performance, we try to understand the user, we see their behavior. Based on that, we continue to develop our product. And now we have a mature product in the market that is actually being used by our users. So now we're looking to improve it, to make a better experience for the users. And then we're involving the HEART method, which we are examining the behavior, examining the trends, examining the patterns, and learning how do we make a better experience for the users than what we had before.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's sometimes is the confusing thing. There are so many frameworks and so many places
to
where
use
you
it.
can use them. And I mostly in my career adopted one or the other rather than trying to think, specifically what's the right case for that.
Yeah.
Maybe because mostly I was working at one company and there was one that fit and we just used that, right? So it's really interesting to see from a perspective of someone like you that has done it before in other places and working with different clients to see what is the right one, the right fit, and then pivot, I guess, based on the fit.
By the way, I wanted to mention that for different stakeholders, those steps may be different. So for example, for the customer support team, acquisition may be that the customer is creating an account and for them, they're already using your product. But for the product team, it's not enough to have that. I actually want to know that all the features are being used,
Right.
that I didn't develop something within my product that is not used and that is neglectable, and we need to remove it from there in order to create a better experience for the users, because we actually want to provide value with every small detail that we have in our system. And I think that it's true to say that when we're doing onboarding, and I think that a lot of companies are struggling with onboarding because it's always hard to do a good onboarding. But I think that onboarding is a very important stage in that as well, because we need to make sure that users are having a good first impression from the moment that they are entering to our system. They're having a good impression and they're looking to come and have more and more from this impression. And if we are able to create this good impression from the beginning, that is going to make our lives easier in the future when we are going to add additional functionalities and help them to have a bigger value from what we are providing.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. So it absolutely talks to different people at different times. So combination of all of them makes a lot of sense to me.
It's another puzzle. It's another puzzle,
another
right?
puzzle. Yes, it's another puzzle.
Another
Absolutely.
puzzle inside a puzzle.
And that's how you really tailor it. So you can tailor specific based on who are the stakeholders, what the stages are, what really is important for them. If you are a product manager that not managing a whole product, but specific features of a product, and a lot of product managers are doing that with big products.
Right.
Then you might need only specific thing related to that, but you also need to be aware how it, in the context of the product, how it affects the entire cycle. So there is a lot of, these puzzle point of views. It's a not one-dimensional puzzle for sure.
Yeah, that's not one-dimensional puzzle, and it's very complex
Right.
one.
Yeah. Now, we always forget with these frameworks, we always forget, who originated them because they're so known and everyone is using them. So I did a small research here, and I hope Google is correct about and give attributes to the people that actually came up with these. So the AARRR is what Google told me was created by Dave McClure. He's a Silicon Valley investor and founder of 500 startups. So he came up with that. And then Rice, Sean McBride, and he's from Intercom. So I thought this was even before Intercom was a company, but I guess it's not as old as I thought. And then HEART is Google. I think I knew that. So Google told me it's Google, and that they use that at Google, right?
Yeah.
So even those companies, people came up with new frameworks, and some people are saying, "Oh, I'm not using any framework. I'm just using, whatever fits in." But at the end of the day, we're using a flavor of that, or we're using some type of combination. Even at Google, I'm sure they came up with that, but Google is such a big company that I'm sure some of them used R and used Rice, etc.
Yeah. By the way, one thing that is important to know that how do you know that you're there? How do you know that you're working on the right direction and that what you actually are doing is bringing you to this product-led growth?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, for example, TikTok is doing great work from product-led growth because they are creating very viral products. And by the way, being viral is one of the product-led growth metrics of how do you know whether you're there? Because people keep coming and you are creating new trends and you are bringing people organically to the system. So organic measurement is one additional. High user engagement, meaning that users are coming and keep coming to the system to use it one more. Those three are the main ones. There are several more that helps you. So for example, doing like data, decisions that are based on data, and better engagement. But those three of organic growth, having viral product and have a good user engagement, those three will help you to understand whether you are doing the growth analysis in the right way and whether you're actually developing your products to be a growth-led product.
Yeah, and that's also important to mention, trailing versus leading KPIs or indicators, because and I mentioned it a bit before, that making money is not always the goal to measure. So that's very much a trailing one versus a leading KPI. So we need to also have things that we have control over, that product has control over. Many things like how do we sell and how much we sell, sometimes we have no control over. Or we have only a part control over that. And there is a famous example from Facebook. I don't remember the exact details, but they found out after many years and data that they looked at how if a person is going to stay with Facebook and actually use Facebook, if they invited a number of friends after X number of days that they were using the product. I believe it was like 2 friends in a week or something like that.
Yeah.
But once they found this measurement, they were able to get people to use the product in a way that will immediately make them behave this way. And therefore, that was an indicator that they will be much more likely to continue using Facebook.
Yeah, that's the organic growth, the one that
Yeah.
you're
Exactly. Perfect. I don't have any more questions. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, so we've been circling one of my favorite words, analytics, the whole time.
Yes.
So we've said data, insights, and stuff like that. So I think it's clear that analytics plays a role in each of these frameworks, and maybe you could speak to that some. But what may also be interesting is AI. So we mentioned AI a little bit earlier. So I see a lot of opportunity with analytics, but then AI assistance to help identify those patterns, make your analytics even stronger, be assistance to you when you're trying to implement these things, and maybe even when you implement these things. So maybe we could dive into that a little bit.
Well, I think that AI is definitely there to be used and definitely there to help us improve our analytics. And I think that there are a lot of types of measurements that can help you get a better understanding of your product. For example, this heat map that I know that should be used, but a lot of companies are not using that because maybe it's hard to develop, maybe it's a bit redundant for them. But for example, this one, and I know that there are analytical tools with AI that helping you do that. So it can actually elevate your product one step higher because you can actually see the trend and actually see the behaviors of your users live on how do they use your system. So if you are using it smartly and if you are incorporating AI tools and different AI wrappers that are there in order for you to use them, you just need to find the right one that is helpful for you. And in that way, you can actually make driven data decisions in order to make your company better and improve their performance.
I think it comes down to measuring what matters. So like you can have analytics, but like if it needs to be, you need to be measuring what matters. It sounds like that plays a big part in these framework. And then AI can, as it gets stronger and stronger, it can help you along the path there. So with tools, as product for product, we like to talk about tools. Is there any tool that you would recommend when implementing these frameworks, or analytic tools or anything like that?
Well, it's very much dependent on the company and on the need of the tools. Specifically in the big companies that I've been working with, they are not using any external tools. They are developing by themselves the tools that they are been using. And for smaller companies, I can provide you maybe a list after we finalize our discussion of what tools should be better for those type of companies. But definitely there. And you are definitely right that first you need to understand what you are measuring and only then go and measure it.
That's it. That's it.
And also see that you choose the right tool that can actually measure that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because our data analytics tools that we talked about was the first series that we did, and it was almost 3 years ago. So I'm sure there might be new tools, although I'm still hearing these 4 names these days as the products to go to. So we were talking about Pendo, Heap, Amplitude, and Mixpanel. And they're great for instrumenting tools and stuff like that. I can also say that I know UserPilot. We talk about UserPilot in a different context, but they also are developing data analytics features with AI. So that's really interesting. But I'm sure there are other tools that are exist out there.
It might be worth looking at it again, because 3 years ago, AI wasn't, AI was still nebulous, in-house kind of stuff. So it might be worth looking at again.
And Google Analytics had a newer version or a newer product. So back then it was still the older product, so we didn't even consider it to our series. But maybe now we should. I don't know. We have to look into that.
Yep.
Perfect. Very good. Thank you so much, Yelena. This was great. Where can people reach out to you if they want to learn more?
So they can reach me out through my LinkedIn. They can also reach me out through my website. And I will share the both of them with you, so you can add it to the link of the podcast.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. This was really great. I did think in the past to do episodes about each one of those frameworks, but it does make a lot of sense to put them together, because there are so many different cases and how do you choose them. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for coming to the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was
happy
to talk to you about it.
It was a pleasure having you. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to all the listeners, and we'll talk to everybody later. Take care.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.